of evolution's work went into giving us those superpowers.
I mean, there aren't a whole lot of animals that are as adapted to multiple environments as we are.
Yeah, yeah. We're pretty adaptable, right? Which is one reason why we spread everywhere.
We have clothing.
We have clothing. Clothing, you better, yeah, that's a technological superpower, right? Tony Stark had to invent clothing in a cave. But yeah, that counts. So intelligence, right, for sure. Intelligence is our real superpower, right? And we'll talk more about that one. So here's a superhero with a sense that we don't normally have, all right? And that's his whole power, basically, is just a sense that we don't have. We have lots. So if no one in the world had vision, obviously the one-eyed man would be a superhero. Daredevil, aka Matthew Murdock, created by Stan Lee and Bill Everett for Daredevil #1 in 1964. Lawyer by day, ninja by night. So his story is he was blinded by radioactive ooze and his other senses were enhanced. So he gained, in particular, an additional sense that we don't normally have, a radar sense, somewhat like a bat does have. So for your reports, you have to come up with superpowers. One of the easiest ways to come up with a superpower is just think about animals that can do things we can't, right? So sonar is a pretty useful power. And if you had that, no one else in the world does, that would be pretty useful, right? So here's a couple examples from the comics. So here he's fighting Spider-Man, actually. So, okay, it's his heartbeat, his scent, his footfall. I can tell it's him, unless he's running some elaborate prank Spider-Man is forcing a fight, right? So he can tell, he can't see him because he's blind, right? So he was blinded by, so that's the interesting irony, I guess, of Daredevil, is he can't see, so he's dealing with this issue, but he does have other abilities. So instead of being able to see, he can sense scent and hearing, and so he can hear the heartbeat, and he does have this radar sense to outline things, even all around him, so he can see behind him, right? So it's useful and interesting. So let's take a look at a natural superpower that we don't have, all right, echolocation, or radar. And we're also going to look at, do other senses, because you may have heard about this, right, that other senses were enhanced after being blinded. So, like I've heard about that. Does that actually happen? All right. So, echolocation, or active sonar, is what a submarine would call it, active sonar. Active means you're actively doing something. You're sending something out, right? Bats use A, sound, or B, radio. Okay, so everyone's saying sound, so yes, sonar, the S is for sound, okay? I can't remember what the rest stands for, but radar would be radio ranging, all right, with radio. A sub, technically I suppose can do both. I think they normally use radio, but I'm not actually sure on that. No, I guess if they're using sonar, it's sound. So various animals can do this with sound, all right? They will send out a sound. So bats and dolphins, you know, they make a sort of high-pitched chittering sound, or whatever. I'm not gonna try and do a dolphin with that one, but they'll send that out and it'll bounce back to them and they'll pick it up, right? So that's sonar. So for bats, they do ultrasound. So they send out a signal from their mouth, just a sound, they're speaking, right? It's ultrasound, so it's 14 kilohertz, 14,000 hertz to 100,000 hertz. Our hearing goes from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So there is a bit of overlap, right? They start at 14,000 and go up to 100. We start at 20,000. So a little bit, that's why we say it's a high-pitched sound. You can hear a little bit of what they're sending out, but only a little bit. The rest is beyond our range of hearing, but they are sending it out. If something is on your left, a sound you make will bounce back first to which ear? This is not a trick question. A sound will bounce back first to which ear? A, your left ear, or B, your right ear? So of course, it'll bounce back first to your left ear and then to your right. The timing difference is what a bat will detect. So it'll send out the sound and it'll see which ear does it bounce back to first. Aha, it's over there, or aha, it's over there, or whatever, all right? So that's how sonar works. It's not necessarily all that complicated, but it is unbelievably difficult to do.
And it's also the length of time that the signal's coming back.
Yes, and they can figure out distance, they have depth perception.
They shoot it out and it comes right back or something right in front
Yes,
of
they
them.
can directly measure what is the time, which if you think, like they're not crunching the numbers, right? But they have an instinctual understanding of how this will work. The same as you can catch a ball without
Well,
calculating
it's
the
got to
pair
be
of
a
all
little bit
apart.
of trial and error too. Like,
Yeah, they would have to learn, but you can learn to do a lot of things in your life. And they learn to do this instinctually. Yeah, Chris.
So usually when someone's discussing sonar or radar in comics, you get that visual representation.
Yeah.
That's not how that works.
Not really. I mean, it's not sending out in one direction. It'll go out in all directions.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's okay enough. It's fine. You can see the wavelength, right? So that's the point. So, and it spreads out sort of circularly. It's okay enough. I don't think it's that bad. Anyway, so yes, you can even get location, distance, even velocity. You can even get velocity, all right? So we talked about this actually with the Doppler effect. Something moving towards you will be shifted to a higher or b lower frequency. Remember this? This was like lesson 2, right? Something moving towards you will be shifted to a higher or b lower frequency. It'll be blue shifted. The wavelengths get compressed, so it's shifted to higher frequency. So that's rep A, right? So so they can actually pick up the Doppler effect. They'll pick up a blue or red shift, which is pretty amazing, right? It's debated how much they do that, but from what I could tell, they do, which is intense. So anyone's guess what Daredevil is emitting. Like, how embarrassing would it be as a crime fighter to be going out there going like creating some horrifying sound? But so assuming Daredevil is emitting something out of his mouth, let's hope we can't hear it at all, okay, or else it's embarrassing as hell. But the next question is, how could he hear it? So his range of hearing would have to be different than ours, right, Chris?
I mean, in terms of the way it's described in the comics, isn't it basically reverse sonar, where he hears all the sounds around him and can somehow...
So it is different. In the Netflix show, they did not ever really say that he was doing active sonar. He was doing passive sonar, where he was just listening.
Yeah.
So like his car drives by and he would hear that.
So he just hears really, really well. All right, but in the comics, it is generally said that he's doing active sonar. He's actually sending something out. Right?
I mean, one thing he did in the Ben Affleck movie that they got right was he used his stick to
He would tap. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, he would tap a sound, and then he could hear how that reverberated back.
So the reason he could see when he was walking on the street was he had his cane and he would tap.
Yeah. So which was a great idea. But otherwise, if he wants this to be working all the time, then he needs to be setting something pretty high pitched, right? Much more than just a tap. So anyway, it does vary. Some sources will say that he's just really good at hearing. We already said that his hearing is enhanced, so I suppose you might as well just say it's that enhanced. But anyway, it's more interesting if he's doing active sonar, right? So anyway, coming back to that issue then, when you are blinded, are your other senses enhanced? Can blind people hear, smell, and feel more? All right. So here's from Frank Miller and Roger McKenzie. My touch is so sensitive I can read an ordinary newspaper by feeling the impressions of the ink. I never forget a scent. Once I smell it, I can recognize any girl by the perfume she wears, any man by his aftershave. I can hear the faintest whisper, even a person's heartbeat. And my sense of taste is so acute, I can even tell how many grains of salt are on a pretzel. Okay, weird flex. But anyway, so is this plausible? Because I've heard this sort of thing before, that senses are enhanced, right? So there actually is debate on this. When I looked into it, there is some debate. There was a study in March 2017. An MRI was done on some people that showed that there were differences in the brains of the blind. They were interpreting information differently. Their brains were functioning differently, which is interesting. So it included memory and language, motor functions and senses. So their brains had changed, potentially. Now, the general consensus, though, is there is no sudden appearance of a new physical ability. It's just your brain's ability to interpret what you're already getting. In other words, if you sealed your eyes for a month, you would probably get pretty adept at functioning with just your hearing, right? And that would actually change your brain. So that's how the brain works, after all. Your brain learns. As you learn new skills, your brain will create new pathways and stuff for that. So, in other words, it's not a physical change, it's purely you're rewiring your own brain.
Because the brain is adaptive too, right?
Yes.
So as we are faced with new challenges, like if you had been able to see your whole life and then you instantly went blind, there would be an adjustment phase, but you would become much more adept
You would gain new
picking
skills.
up anything with your hearing.
Yeah, Chris?
There's also synesthesia, which
Yeah.
can
So
be curious.
Yeah, so there are ways that the brain will sort of misinterpret and connect things weirdly, right? Anyway, so this is, to some extent, this would be potentially achievable, right? With practice and training, potentially, right? And that's all he's really got then, is practice and training. So anyway, coming back to something we already said, right, that the brain is our greatest superpower by far, right? Very, very potent superpower. Okay, what about this? Inheritability. Would he pass on his gift if it is based on training? Say A, yes, B, no, or C, maybe. No, that would be Lamarckian, right? That would be Lamarckian evolution, and that does not work. So his child, baby Daredevil, would not have superpowers. What if it is genetic? Would he pass it on?
If it is genetic?
Yeah, what if it is genetic? Yeah, okay, so I see some A's and C's. That's a maybe, all right? That depends exactly how it happened.
On the mom too, right?
Well, sort of. It depends, yeah, on the mom. But let me ask it this way. What genes will he pass on? A, all of his genes. B, genes from his brain. Or C, only genes in sperm cells. So if he got dosed with radioactive gunk, okay, everyone's saying C. If he got dosed with radioactive gunk, then it's possible that he had mutations in his eyes or whatever that changed his eyes. I mean, this is not really likely. But the only mutation that would matter, the only cell that matters when it comes to him having a baby is the sperm, right? The cell that made it, does that contain the mutation or not, right? So if you really want a superpower to be passed on, it has to affect your brain or whatever the superpower is supposed to do. It has to affect your body in many different ways, but it better also be in the sex cells, right? Or else it's not getting passed on, right? So genetic changes are only passed on if they're in the sex cells. So like I already said, what you are going to give to your children was decided at the moment of your conception, right? That's your genetics. If that's going to be changed at some point, then don't forget, if you want it to be passed on again, don't forget to change the sex cells, right?
There's also the not insignificant factor of, oh, he got hit with toxic gunk. Can he breed?
Yeah, can he breed? Poor Daredevil. Anyway, so what about this then? Let's do it the opposite way. If your sperm or egg cells are altered to include a superpower, does that give you the power?
No.
No. Okay. No. So we'll come back to this when we talk next class about altering people. But no, you got to alter. If you really want someone to express something, you got to alter a lot. If you want their children to express something, you only got to alter one cell, a sperm or egg, right? So here's an example, Spider-Girl, aka Mayday Parker, created by Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz for What If number 105, 1998. And I'm pretty sure she was at one time, she may still be, the most successful ever Marvel female superhero. Like she had the most issues of her own comic.
I'm pretty sure that's still her record.
I think it probably did. Anyway, so she is the daughter of Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Mary Jane Watson. So, okay, you tell me, did the spider bite alter Peter's genetics or be just his body in various ways? Based on her existence, if he passed it on, then it's his genetics that were altered. Okay, so next class we'll talk about how you could alter someone's genetics. That is what happened to Spider-Man. Okay.
Imagine if you got bitten by a radioactive spider, but it only affected your sex cells.
Oh God. Anyway, so actually I was going to ask that then. Did it alter, A, the relevant cells, like give him strong muscles? So did it alter just muscle cells and skin cells and whatever was required? Or B, did it alter every single cell in his body, including his sperm? Okay, so, and of course it altered every single cell in his body, including his sperm, right? So that was one hell of a spider bite, to alter every single cell in his body.
Someone put some work into that bug.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that, right? It had to be intentional. This was not an accidental thing. Okay, so next up we're going to look at the X-Men. All right, so the X-Men, a variety of characters, all with very interesting powers. But we're going to pause here. We're going to take a 10-minute break, okay? And then we'll talk about the children of the atom. All right, so 10 minutes and we'll start again.
They go all over the place.
Yeah, it's a big.